again to Postcard. Well, he's not going to get away with last week's, I don't know what I could, rant. That's the best word. And he doesn't like Mr. Trump. Nobody likes Mr. Trump. Mrs. Trump likes him.
Like him.
Well, no, that's true. According to certain newspapers, usually from the left, I've got to say. And welcome, Lee.
How do you do? How do you do? Yeah, have a rant at me. Yeah, well, that nice Mr. Trump, his wife saying she's going to leave him. He won't come out of the White House. We've had a big competition on the Lee G. Banks Preservation Society. I nearly forgot the name of my own site then. Which Bob Dylan song would you dedicate to President Trump? We've had Baby Please Crawl Out of Your Window. It's time to go now. If not for you, everything. No, everybody wants Trump to go. And yeah, you rant to me. I'm getting my rant in first, right? Yeah. He's buying his own newspaper now, you know, so he can publish his own fake news. The man's mad.
Well, interesting times still over in the States. It does look as though the new incumbent is going to get in. That doesn't make sense, does it? But perhaps it does. Who can tell? There is, I have found out, a legal way, and it happened 2 or 3 times over 100 years ago, of righting the wrong. But it's very complicated, as so much in American politics is. But it revolves around the fact that you can go and appeal eventually, if you're crafty, to the Republicans who are in charge of the Senate by the back door and get them to reverse the decision. Now, I've heard on the QT that Trump is trying to do this, but whether the lawyers will intervene, I don't know. It's wait and see time. It doesn't look like it, but you never know.
Easy. Well, yeah, this is apparently, this is trying to rationalize what the great Trump is trying to do. To rationalize his behavior, what people have come up with is an ancient part of the Constitution of America, one that actually has been used twice before in I can't remember the name of the presidents now, but in the last 100 years, it's been used twice, where you go to the Senate and you go through all sorts of rigmaroles, and it's madness, and it's tiresome, it's old-fashioned, but ultimately you may be able to do something about the election result. Good on him. You see, there is an argument that actually, for once in his life, Donald Trump is telling the truth, that maybe the elections were rigged against him and all these things have gone on. But in one fell swoop, he's condemned everybody else to be a liar, apart from himself. And that's just so wrong. And the main thing is, why do we want that man in charge? Biden or Biden? I got told off for saying his name wrong. Mr. Biden. Mr. Biden. What is it? Biden or Biden?
It's Biden, mate.
Biden, yeah. Mr. Biden. Yeah. He really, I don't think he's the most magical incumbent for this job. But he's potentially honest. But I say potentially.
Well, it'll be the first time, according to various allegations. Listen, I'm getting bored of America at the moment. I'm going to move on. I'm going to get bored with COVID again. And, well, I mean, listen, we've got a luminary, Elon Musk, who's the richest man in the world. Well, he's the earned richest man in the world. He's still earning from his company, which is Amazon, of course. And he's done very well out of the virus. Perhaps he invented it. Anyway, but he's a bit mad because he's had, in one day, 4 COVID tests. 2 were positive, 2 were negative. And he said, what's all this about? And he's right, because so many of the tests, we have got friends in Portugal that have had tests and retests because they couldn't get it right. And it's common throughout Europe. they've got to get the testing sorted out, but they haven't, or they won't, or is it all part of the scenario of real fake news? Because let's be honest, and we both agree on this, you've got figures here showing 1% death rate, and it's usually at the older end of the scale. And everybody is starting, I say everybody, a large portion of the population is now starting to say, well, hang on, lock up the grannies like the Swedes have done, and let's carry on with real life. There's going to be traction on this one, Lee, the longer it goes on.
Absolutely. Let's remove from that statement, which I think is a very laudable statement. Let's remove fake news from it, because that implicates that the news industry is making it up. The news industry isn't making anything up. What it's doing is reporting what other people are making up, potentially. You know, there is information given out in vast quantity at this time from the government, from World Health Organization, from everybody you can think of. Everybody's grandmother and dog is giving out information. And you've got to sift through it and decide what is the reality. So it's not the press and the media that's giving out fake news. What it is, the powers that be are giving out fake information about what's going on. And really, when you look at the fact that in Bratislava, in my part of the world at the moment, there was complete anarchy on the streets, anarchy not seen since the 1980s, over masks. I'll tell you what, I will wear a mask, whether it's right or wrong, to protect me and protect my fellow man, whether it's made up or not. But the fact that why is all this information coming out? Why isn't it sifted properly before it reaches the news organisations? Then we can do our job and sift through it. There are massive investigations being done by massive news organisations at the moment into what the truth is. And ultimately, you know, look at the PPE reports that's just come out, you know, about the cronyism in the contracts. It's well, yeah, it's a report by a proper body that's looked into this. But it was the press who broke this story 6 months ago. 6 months ago, and we were laughed at and derided over it. Well, it's true.
Well, I've got one up our street, literally, as Mancunians. Our friend Marcus Rashford, who's been such an angel, headlined in the Mail this weekend, Sunday Mail, says Marcus Rashford, philanthropist almost, has been caught. What's he been caught with? Well, he's been caught with buying 4 super luxurious, or was it 5? One of the two, houses. And here's he giving all this social righteousness, and there is he pocketing all the rents from these houses he's bought. And when you look at the thing actually and divide it 2 million, which they cost, by 4 or 5, that's about the cost of a semi-detached house in most cities these days. So he's not buying luxury pads, but the Mail says, oh, he's living in luxury. He's got 4 or 5 luxury houses. Now that is not really accurate news reporting, Lee.
Well, you see, listen, I know Marcus Rashford personally since he came over here to train me. And because there's a big training organisation, and I met him through that. He's a lovely, lovely, lovely man. But let's put it this way: what the Mail story, and I published this story last year. I actually broke this story last year. The National Footballers Association, right, is actually advising footballers who are getting towards, you know, the mid-end of their careers to buy properties so that they have some kind of income to come in. Now, Marcus Rashford hasn't done anything other than what the Football Association has advised them to do. They're also advising people, footballers, to become plumbers and become carpenters and become bricklayers so that they can work on their own property. Now, I think it very often is part of our job to take hold of a story like that. Like I say, I broke that story last year. Me personally, nobody else, just me. I broke it and it was taken and run with. But the situation is quite simple. When you have somebody like Marcus Rashford, I do think the Mail article was a bit disingenuous towards him. But when you have somebody like Marcus Rashford who is standing up and being counted and waving his fist in the air for the little man, then it is worth always scrutinising their background. And if this man owns, I don't know how many houses he owns now, 5 or 6 he owns, then you start to ask the question, is he really doing it? I've asked it continuously about Keir Starmer, the new Labour leader, and Jeremy Corbyn. Well, they're both multi-millionaires. Now, they're extolling the virtues of the little man and what we've got to do. Do you know that one of the poorest politicians is Boris Johnson?
Oh, now it depends how you look at wealth and what wealth is. He's
taken $500,000 drop in, I think it's 350,000 drop in his salary to run the country through Brexit and COVID for us. He's had to give up one of his houses. I think it's one of his houses, might be an apartment. He's going through a major wrangle over his divorce, and he actually is running up big debts. His property in London's worth quite a lot of money, but not to the extent of the 8 million that Jeremy Corbyn's got in the bank, or that Keir Starmer's got in the bank. They're multi-millionaires.
Well, yes, and it's a shame. I think we should have a collection for Uncle Boris. He's finding it tough. I'll tell you what, he's made a bit of a boob this week, maybe two boobs. The first one, of course, is that he relaxed a bit much on Zoom, and the truth came out what he really thought about a previous Prime Minister, Mr. Blair. He, apart from the Iraq episode, he, of course, made the biggest boob, according to Boris, by giving the Scots their own way. And then it's now coming and biting everybody back because it's a bad thing to do, to give too much power to these principalities, let's call them. And he got into trouble for that. How dare he say that? Nicola went berserk. But maybe the truth does escape.
Well, let's face it, really. Tony Blair, I think Tony Blair is up there with Donald Trump in the madness of the world of politics. I think also his multi-millionaire status is incredible, and the fact that he decided all these years, 20 years ago, to hand over a great deal of control to the to Ireland and to Scotland and Wales. Was that really a mistake? Why did he want to in our country? We were already still talking then about coming out of Europe, and it all went a bit sour. Now, Boris is allowed to have an opinion that says this man made a complete mistake and has made things very difficult for us. And why do we want to have barriers within our own country?
Well, yeah, I mean, I mentioned one boob. Let's have a look at another boob. And basically, you've got a situation now where our dear friend Boris has turned green, from blonde to green. He's saying we've got to get rid of all our cars, petrol, diesel, in less than 10 years. Now, that is utter madness on various counts, in my humble opinion. One is, how can we afford that when we can't afford COVID? How can we afford HS2 as well? That's going to cost 100 billion and more. Why at least to save 20 minutes to Manchester? If it was to anywhere else, I'd have stood on it straight away. But, you know, you think, oh, well, it's 20 minutes to Manchester. It's good, worth it. No, it's not. I tease. And it's a situation. What is going on? Lee, it's potty because what we're going to do, we're going to finish up buying all our batteries from China because that's where they come from, apart from anything else.
Do you know there isn't enough lithium in the world to actually create the number of batteries for this? And it is absolutely insane in many, many ways. I was conned into buying diesel vehicles just as you were. My vehicle has a good, clean bill of health, and it will keep me going for the next 10 years at least. And afterwards, I'll just keep my vehicle. Well, then you have to look at the fact that I run on special diesel, super diesel, racing diesel. Now, really, is that going to continue to be available to us, or are all our cars condemned? How are they going to put up a charging point outside every on the houses are in Britain? How are they going to put 55 million parking things outside people's houses? What if we've got 3 cars, 3 parking things?
Lee, you're right, it's crackers. We've had a electrical charging unit near our Portuguese base for 12 months. I have seen one vehicle there in 12 months. It's madness. I mean, no organised business could possibly make any money. But again, we're beholden to the civil servants, the bureaucrats, who know better. It's complete potty. Now, while I'm on the subject, go on, you're going to say something.
No, just, something that we checked out this morning, because as people who know, I have an ongoing fight with a council over HGVs. And so we checked. And HGVs, in fact, although they are very good mechanically, as far as pollution is concerned, but they are one of the biggest pollution elements there is. Particularly in Britain, where all freight now has to go by road, basically. Now, do you know, and people don't know this, you know, that actually the diesel HGVs are not going to be taken off the road, or they're not going to be able to buy them in 2030. No, it's going to go on to 2050 for them. So you and I are going to be driving around little car cars, little electric car cars, little put-puts. You know, the put-puts. So what we're going to do? We're going to have, like, oh, it's just ridiculous. I'm 6'5". I can't drive around in a little mini car. You know, it's just madness. And what about people like me who want to travel the world and have to go drive back to Britain and come back? How many times are we going to stop every half hour to recharge it? It'll take me a year.
Yes, it's not there yet, and it's very doubtful what it will be there in the next 9 years, and that is an absolute fact. And what are they going to do, of course, about the hydrogen car? Although at the moment it is more expensive, it's a bit of a job electrically to get to break up water, which is hydrogen and oxygen, and it is expensive, and the numbers don't add up for that either. But what numbers do add up is the fact that my own car has got a very blue engine, and you put this blue stuff in it to clean it up. I can practically, or anybody can practically, breathe in the exhaust gases. It's very clean. It does 50 odd miles to the gallon, even though it's your size of car and weighs over 2 tons. For goodness sake, that works. We have the technology now in the traditional old-fashioned engines. Let's stick with it until the science really gets going. It's all part of the brainwashing of the green movement, and Boris has fallen for it.
Well, he's hugged everything else. He might as well hug a tree. Yeah, no, I agree with you. I agree. You see, if I am against conspiracy theories, as you know, but one thing that does strike me about the conspiracy theory over this is that by saying we're getting rid of all the diesel cars, etc., by 2030, not getting rid of the HGVs, though, of course, but we're going to get rid of the cars. So as a punishment to make it off our little electric tuk-tuk, we're going to put the price of diesel up and the price of petrol up. So again and again, in Britain, I don't know how much it is now, because over here it's still fairly expensive, but we can still get diesel, super diesel, the diesel I need, because I think mine's a bit blue as well. I've never put the blue stuff in, but I might have a go. For about £4.50, the equivalent to £4.50 a gallon. In Britain, I think it's still knocking up £7 isn't it?
Yeah, we in Spain, where we are at the moment, we're only paying 80 odd euros, no, pence translated, for a litre. Now it's way cheaper than GB, but there you are.
Yeah, that's what we say, yeah.
Right, I'm gonna move on, Lee, because we've got to agree on the agenda of the conspiracy theories. We don't support them at all. But there are things creeping up on us, and this is the danger of conspiracies, of course, in that they get 90% of things right, but it's the 10% that they let themselves down with. And, you know, the 5G is a prime example of that. I'm sorry, we don't buy it. There's no proof at all. Whatever they tell you, it doesn't cause corona and brain damage and anything else. The latest thing, of course, is these nano chips that they're going to inject in us to cure us of corona, well, to stop us getting corona. Now, there again, there's a good, who would possibly get away with that one? If they would do it, they should have done it when they put the ordinary flu injection in. It's a nonsense.
I think so. I was going to make a joke about Nando's will do very well out of it. Let's go for their chips. But I thought I wouldn't. And yeah, I agree. There is this world of dystopia that we're living in. We've watched loads of films. We've been watching loads of films from the 90s, new series like The Barrier, which talk about build this scenario of a dystopian world. Many of them are about when the world is overtaken by a virus. There are other things that are overtaken by aliens. But the one common denominator is the way that cities are shut down. Now, we are trapped in a city that's shut down yet again. Other cities are all over Europe are facing the same thing. There is a growing theory about the resetting of the world, and to have these chips injected into your body without actually knowing exactly what they do contain, because things can be hidden in there. There is, yet again, another factor of control. At the moment, we here in Central Europe have gone back to the days of the communist era, where you are literally a little bit afraid to go out on the street. Yesterday, we went for a walk around the town, purely for health reasons, and within 2 miles, we saw 6 police cars and two wagons. Now that's unheard of on the streets around here. It is a control factor. We're all being controlled. We're all having to stay at home. We're all getting a bit unfit. And to have then this way of allowing us to get some of our freedom back, which involves injecting you, maybe the anti-vaxxers do have a point. I don't believe anti-vaxxers at all. But then these little things in this dystopian scenario that we're living in start to have some kind of credence.
Well, something interesting's come out this week about our friend Bill Gates. Now, he's either the savior of the world or quite the opposite. And all sorts of stories about flying about him. One of the things that is a truth is that he's denied having anything to do with these nano chips. He doesn't know anything about them. Porky Pie Bill, you do, because several years ago now, you did partake in inventing a chip to stop the ladies getting pregnant. And apparently it does, and it lasts for about 16 years. If injected in you, it's quite a small chip, but not nano, you know, you can actually see the blooming thing. But why should he start telling porcupines now? Well, obviously in a quick defensive thing, oh, I've got nothing to do with this nano theory. I've never done it. You have, Bill, and it's possible that it can regulate your body rhythms in various ways.
I've not heard that particular aspect of the denial. Yeah, in his defence, I'm not in particular reason to defend him, but for the sake of argument, the nano or the chip to do with pregnancy has actually nothing to do with the chip to do with COVID. He might have been involved in nanotechnology or this chip technology 20 years ago, but it doesn't mean he's involved now. It's like people talk about his involvement with all these companies to do with all sorts of things to do with COVID. His charity supports him, and his charity gives money in a good way. I don't actually see any great wrong in Bill Gates at the moment, and you know he's in a way he's ruined the world. He has actually, yes, don't forget about him. He has been one of the ruining the world by introducing and perpetuating the cyber world as opposed to the real world. Yeah, he's guilty.
Now, sometimes we attack things in a light-hearted manner between us, quite right. I mean, you'd drive yourself around the bend if you didn't. But one thing has come to light this week, although it's been here for some time, is the fact of factory farming. And people are worried about another COVID coming back, COVID 21, 20, call it what you like. But the facts are, and the scary facts are, is that factory farming is not very good, because if you want to spread a COVID type disease, you will find that, as an example, of the 37 types of transition from human to animal and vice versa, 35 have been in factory farming conditions, i.e. in hen houses, in cattle houses, in pig houses where they're snout to snout. And you're asking for trouble carrying on farming. Not only that, you're filling the pig, the cow, the chicken with antibiotics. 73% of all antibiotics now are administered to animals. That's why they're not working on us humans. If you want to really tackle everything and anything, forget the Greens. Oh, he said it again. Well, perhaps I have. But really, this is proof positive. The Greens have their points in certain things, but it's nowhere near as serious as this. Let's get a grip and attack the real problems in society. This is a major one.
I understand exactly where you're coming from. Factory farming, where my main house is a farming area. And when we first bought the house there was a lot of factory farming going on around there. The farmers in that particular area, like a lot of Britain, have seen the sense of stopping it. If you force animals together, cheek by jowl, snout by snout, you are going to risk some kind of infection. You're combating that by giving drugs, and those drugs are going to get passed on to the population. There was a survey done a couple of years ago now about the fact that people have started to notice in supermarkets that chicken, in particular, whole chickens, had burn marks on the flesh. And the burn marks were there, not as a, tried to pass it off saying it was a natural condition. It wasn't a natural condition. Because they were living in factory conditions, they were living in ditches and whatever else you can think of in that zone. And this was inflaming the quality of the skin. Add that to the drugs, add that to the unhappiness of the animal, add that to the cruelty of the animals. You know, we're talking about a dystopian world. In a way, we are headed for that of being put off from the world. But we've done that to our animals for decades now. We need to stop it. We need to have healthy food, not food that's full of drugs.
Yeah, it's all down to maths and profit, of course, in these cases. Now, I remember the ecological movement really having a go. It must have been 10 years ago now. Let the chickens run free, let them eat natural corn. And that's great. And of course, when you went to the supermarket, you were paying at least double the price. Now, that was a con. It's not double the price. It's about 20% the real cost of all this on the price. Well, it would do us no harm by eating 20% less meat while still eating meat and having the same price in effect. Maybe we should be pressing this natural farming a little bit more.
I think so. I think so. And being a vegetarian, as people know, apart from kebabs and McDonald's, I support the movement to get people away from meat eating, because there is a healthier diet than that. And what the farmers, like I said, in the area where we live in Britain, their animals do run free, and the animals are happy. You can find, I know it sounds silly and childish and wonder bookish, but the animals are happy, and that creates it just creates a better meat and a better food.
Well, it does. It sounds crazy, this, but you're absolutely right, and it's been now proven. If you have a happy animal running in a green field, if you wish, as opposed to somebody stuck in a cage, some animal stuck in a cage, then the animal actually is nervous, is unhappy. It causes stress within the animal and inflammation within the animal, which is bad for the animal and bad for the human being when they eat this kind of meat. It's important that our animals are happy.
That's right. And it's like I say, the proof is in the pudding. If you look at people in lockdown, people are stressed, unhappy, and inflamed by lockdown, and it does create an unhappiness. The joy at the moment is for us to walk out of the house and just go up the road like old ladies, because it's as if we can't.
Spoken like a true meat eater, that the proof of the pudding is in the eating. Yeah, okay, I'll go for that one. Unless it's suet pudding, of course, and you've got animal in suet pudding. No, we won't go there. Now, but it's tasty, isn't it? And do you remember the days, Lee, when we used to have chips cooked in animal fat and what they tasted like?
Yeah, lard. Now, in my dim and distant past, this is an organisation I'm sure you'll know about and remember, the UCP, United Cattle Products. I used to work for them. I used to deliver massive blocks like that, of lard to all over the north. That's how I made my disgusting job. But the chips were fantastic.
Yeah, you didn't last long. One bag a week and you were all right. Right, I've got another thing for you to ponder, another fact about this wretched COVID thing that is another mystery. And the fact is as follows. Everybody is losing money, especially governments at the moment. Depend on which country you come from. China's doing all right again. They're up 5% in the last quarter. And you look at Britain and it's down, one of the worst countries in the world, 9 point something, let's say 10% in the last quarter. That's what we've lost, and averaging probably that over the whole year. Now, hang on, that is not good when we've been used to in the West having an average growth rate of 1, 2, 3, and a bit more percent depending on the country. But that's 10%. Now, we've all lost 10% from our income, which is not pleasant. But it's not the disaster that it's been painted, surely to goodness. There's a bit of exaggeration here. We don't enjoy it, nobody does. But it's 10%. Eat less chips by 10%, it'll do you good. Then you'll survive it. But it's not the end of the world, Lee. What's going on? Is this more disinformation?
I don't think it's disinformation at all. I think it's an absolute straightforward con. And I state that. You see, the banks are talking about having to go into negative equity. That means that if you've got money in the bank and I've got money in the bank, we're going to actually have to pay the banks. Well, it'll only be a small amount, but we're going to have to pay the banks to keep our money in the banks. That means that the banks are actually getting more money for them to go and play with to build their own business and make their own profits, etc. Now, if you actually look at the facts, again, the London Banks Conservation Society published this earlier this year. Because we can't go out, because we're not going to work, because we're not driving our cars as much, because we're worried, we have put a massive amount into our savings into the banks. The banks have, I think, I can't remember the figures exactly, but between 15 and 30 billion pounds more in savings. So they've had an incredible boost to their play money, and now they want more of it. And they keep putting interest rates, whatever you've got in the bank, 0%. Now they want us to pay it. The economy, we're all thinking Boris Johnson's wonderful, that all the government's wonderful, giving all these people going. But yeah, absolutely, very good move on their time. But now it's out. We could all get £120 a month extra in tax to pay for it. It's a con.
Right.
By the way,
go on.
Bitcoin.
Yes.
Very well, thank you. I haven't got it, but Bitcoin is doing incredibly well at the moment because people are looking for somewhere else to go.
Well, if you're prepared to gamble, yeah, I'm not with Bitcoin. There has been a better tip than that, actually. And we must put a disclaimer in here. We're not recommending. But if ever there was a right time to buy gold, it could be now. But don't. That's no recommendation. But I
wasn't recommending Bitcoin. I was just saying that in fact it's grown. Gold, yeah. When Gordon Brown sold all gold, I know one man who tried to buy it. Oh, he didn't quite manage it, but by George, he got a lot of it, and he's doing very well. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Finally, we've got to go out. Lee, time has gone, as it usually does, all too quickly. And I'm going to have a go and make myself popular again with the principalities of the United Kingdom and Spain. Now, I do know a little bit about this because I've suffered under the Welsh domination. We've lived there many years. We know the Welsh. We love the Welsh. We love the country. So I speak with a little bit of knowledge. I also speak with a bit of knowledge about Catalonia, or Catalonia as it's known in Castellano, but they pronounce it Catalunya. And it has its own language, which is a mixture. It's not difficult like Welsh. It's a mixture of Italian, French, and Spanish. So you sort of get the gist of it without being able to speak it very well. So we know the situation and the havoc that are caused by these nations that want their own nationhood. Now, whether it's for good or bad political reasons, dare I suggest it's usually the latter. And it's based on not the good type of nationalism, but the nationalism which says we are somehow superior to you. And this has been well highlighted in a number of ways. We mentioned earlier Australia and Tasmania. Well, there's a wonderful thing that's happened with Tasmania. They've got a sort of autonomous region there. That's the island south of Australia. And they've appointed various, well, I think it's 12 people to run the country. And most of them are on above 200,000 Australian dollars a year, which is a nice amount of money. And they, of course, have their own parliament and give their own interpretation of things. And when you listen to it, they don't know what they're talking about. The facts are all wrong, especially the international facts that they get themselves into. It's crazy. The rest of Australia are just laughing at them. Now, talking about that, of course, we go straight to Scotland. And we look to the time when the wonderful Nicola said that the state should really organise your children and we'll have a state godfather for them. What is this if it's not outrageous Marxism? We will look after your children. Of course, that's fortunately fallen by the way, but it's happening again in Scotland because there is a certain USAF that is now part of the cabinet up there that's decided we mustn't think hate speech, especially in our own homes. And children, if your parents are guilty of hate speech because they're not woke, then you should tell and ring up the police. Now, Hitler did that with the Hitler Youth. And this is what's happening in mad Scotland. Wales has got its own problems. We'll leave that to one side, and Northern Ireland. But if you give people power, as we both know, it corrupts. For goodness sake, why can't we get on properly?
I agree with you entirely. It is just a very brief recap on in fact how the world or how the Western world treats children. They have control of our children. They indoctrinate our children through the education system. They take our children off for 8 hours a day. It's a reason that obviously allows us to go to work to make money for the country, but they also when we can take them on holiday. So this dictatorship over our children already exists. But for us to start to indoctrinate our children with this state idea of reporting people, whether it's your parents or not, to the authorities because they don't like what they say, is absolutely, like you say, it's beyond Marxism, it's fascism. And one of the dystopia programs we've been watching is called The Barrier. And within every block of flats in this dystopian world is one person who is there to spy on the others. Everybody knows who they are and to report on them. Now, that is despicable and happened in this area we live in now for decades and decades and decades. It happened in the Soviet Union. But now for it to actually even be suggested that children can report their own families for hate speech or any kind of thing. The simple answer is, as a family, don't use hate speech. But then we don't have an intelligent population in the world. A lot of people think it's fine to get to spout hate speech, but it isn't. It just isn't. But to the state to start to say, tell us about what your parents are saying, little boy, is shameful beyond belief.
I said that was the last question. We both agree on that, but I'll go on. I'll give you a little rant. Neither of us, no, I was going to say neither of us, the whole world is against the little man that come round and give tickets for parking. And we've both been, everybody's been done one time or another, but I was watching a program the other day and a chap who had retired came back because he was getting bored. And at 60, he says, oh, I want something to do. I'll walk around the streets. And he had a bee in the bonnet, and maybe it's a good bee, that people who park in disabled parking spaces are despicable. And right, you know, and he's there giving tickets there. And there was a genuine disabled man he came across, parked, but he had his sticker on. But his sticker was actually just turned around a little bit to the side. And because it wasn't displayed properly, Lee, he got a ticket. Now that, good job it didn't happen to me or you, because we wouldn't have put up with that, but he paid out. Isn't that diabolical?
That is the kind of person who will dictate and be given power in the dystopian world we live. I have my own very brief story about a parking warden in a little village, a little market town called Newport in Shropshire. There was a little parking warden who was terrifying everybody. What he was doing, he was walking down the streets and, to the letter of the law, putting parking tickets on cars that were parked by the side of the road on the high street while people were going in and nipping into the little businesses and shops along that street. He was damaging their businesses. Now, I had, at the time, an old Range Rover, very old Range Rover, the kind of Range Rover that a man in with the doors hanging off, holes in the floor. Those are the Range Rovers you drive. And the back door of it was a bit loose, and it didn't always shut. Now, as I was driving down the road, heard that door, and knew that it can't open, filling all the goods onto the road, creating a potential accident. So I stopped by the road. I put my wheels on the pavement so the traffic couldn't get by me. I knew I was parked on a yellow line, built out the car, so I locked the back door properly, make sure there wasn't any danger, got back in the car. That was so little, all I could flat above the window of the passenger door like that. His little hat like that. Hang on, just let me show you. Just let me show you. This is what I saw. Like that, looking at me, like that. And he said he was going to do me for parking by the side of the road on a double yellow line. I said, I've done it to stop an accident, mate. He said, it doesn't matter, you're not allowed to do that. I said, I don't care, so you would rather I could. Anyway, we had a few words, like you said you would, and he gave up. He went away, and I didn't get a ticket. But that is the mentality. Parking wardens hate him. You know, I exposed him on my radio show for over a year. I actually for his stupidity, his rank, brainless stupidity. And yeah, that's it. Parking wardens, they're the ones that are going to run the dystopian world. They've been running this one for ages. That's all I've got.
Well, he's wrong, of course. They're already in power. They're already running the world. They're all genetically produced in factory farms, dystopian civil servants. Oh, yeah. Go on. I've got a last thought is that with all this accepting a lower standard of living with the COVID thing, I tell you one part of society that has not accepted that, and that is anybody working for the government. And they've done very well out of this. They've got jobs for life. And if they dare come in the next 2 or 3 years and ask for a whopping great pay rise, I will be less than polite.
Absolutely. Why give them more money to stay at home watching loose women and drinking tea?
On that thought, I will leave you, Lee. Another interesting time. And we'll see you next week.
All right then, cheers.